Let's buy this house. If we hesitate, someone else might snatch it up. Angela, how would you take responsibility if it gets sold while we're still considering? After visiting a newly built house for sale, Craig decided on the spot to purchase it. I haven't even seen the second floor yet, and I definitely don't want to buy this house. You respect my opinion, right? Then let's buy it. I like this house. I won't accept any other. Since my salary isn't high, it's better if it's in your name. Real estate agent Howard, who had been aloof until just a moment ago, suddenly burst into laughter. It's a deal then. Thank you very much. With a sales smile, he hurried me into another room to get me to sign the contract. However, as soon as we entered the back room, Howard exclaimed softly, "Run away through the back door, now." Shaking from what Howard showed me, I couldn't stop trembling. I managed to escape, but my legs got tangled and I couldn't run properly. I fell onto the asphalt road. The scraped knees were so painful that tears blurred my vision. Ah, this is not a dream. It's reality, and more tears welled up. I just wanted to marry a kind man. My sadness gradually turned into anger. I won't run away. I want to fight back. The intense palpitations spurred me on, and I vowed revenge on Greg. I am Angela Parker. Wow, Angela, you're in your 40s? You don't look it at all. You look so young. I've always been thought to be 5 to 10 years younger than I am. Still single and working hard, I take care of my skin and dress well. I only recently realized that such comments are mere flattery. Approaching 40, I started to panic, thinking, will I spend my life alone? And began attending matchmaking events. Men my age or even 10 years older only seem to notice women in their 20s or early 30s. It seems that the ability to have children is crucial. I used to enjoy going to movies and eating barbecue alone without a care, but suddenly I felt lonely. Looking around, there were only happy families everywhere. About a year has passed since I started my search for a partner, and in 3 months, I will be 40. Finally, I met a nice man. At a matchmaking party I attended almost giving up, I finally paired up. Craig, 2 years my senior, had a kind face with drooping eyes. Angela, you love your work, don't you? I've been passed over for promotion by my juniors. I admire you. He looked into my face with a slightly hunched posture, which I found adorable. He was like a docile, obedient Shiba dog. He listened to my stories with an open, defenseless smile. He didn't seem very dependable, nor was he handsome. But somehow, he stirred my maternal instincts. But I can do household chores. I can support you while you work, Angela. If we were to get married, what about children? Children. Do you want them, Angela? Craig looked up at me with big, round eyes. Actually, I can't even imagine living with children. Oh, me neither. Really? I'm almost 40, so I'm worried it might be difficult to have children and get married. The next moment, Greg held my hand. His usually gentle expression became slightly more determined as he slowly spoke. Angela, marry me. We don't need children. Just having you by my side is enough. And so, I married Greg. Greg had been living with his parents, so we started a new life in my rented apartment. However, the life I had hoped for didn't materialize. Before marriage, Greg said he would do the housework, but he always found excuses not to do it. The kitchen sink is too small to do the dishes. At my parents' house, the sink was twice this size. And about cooking. If there are only 2 burners, I can't cook. My parents' house had 4 burners. The meals I usually make include just a meatloaf and soup. Greg eats them without complaint, but he's not satisfied when he has to cook. Meals are important, so we should have at least 1 soup and 1 side dish. That's what Mama always said. Mama? No, I meant my mom. He also didn't try to clean or do laundry. He claimed he couldn't manage in the small apartment compared to his spacious family home. My workload hadn't significantly increased compared to when I lived alone. But I was starting to feel a bit dissatisfied with Greg. During this time, he made a suggestion. "Hey, Angela. What do you think about buying a house?" "A house?" "Yeah. Let's buy a house. It will be more spacious and definitely more comfortable to live in." A one-room apartment was indeed cramped. It didn't sound like a bad idea. I feel bad that I can't fully utilize my household skills here. Greg was also considering our life together. That made me happy. "Look, there's a nice house here. It's a newly built house for sale, but the location is good, don't you think?" Greg handed me a printed piece of housing information. "It's a newly built house not too far from the station." "A 3-room, huh? Isn't that a bit too big for just the two of us?" "Not at all. A spacious home is nice. It even has a small garden, so we can have barbecues in the summer." "Wow, a barbecue. That's a privilege of having a detached house." "Sounds great. Right? And, Mama said, I want to set up a pizza oven." Greg stumbled, but there was no mistaking that he had just mentioned his mama. I had long suspected that Greg was a mama's boy. It seems he tries to hide it, but it's obvious. From outside the entrance or the balcony, I often hear him cheerfully calling out, "Mama, Mama." I can't make out the entire conversation, but it's clear he's enjoying it. When we went to greet his mother for our marriage, she didn't ask me about my age or job but simply congratulated me with a "Congratulations." His mother is quite straightforward. Greg doesn't compare me with his mother, so I don't mind his mommy issues. If he wants to keep it hidden, I'll pretend not to notice. My husband, who dislikes alcohol and tobacco and works diligently, is surely perfect in his way. Having had my pride shattered during my dating efforts, I'm truly grateful to have married the mild-mannered Greg. The next weekend, we eagerly went to view the house. I had been excited since the day before, but something felt off. The house itself was lovely. The exterior was in black tile, which I liked. There was a parking space and a garden, and just seeing the outside made me feel like living here. But I didn't want to buy it. "Ah, the garden?" "Yes, it's small, but it's a garden." The real estate agent's attitude was extremely poor. Without greeting us, Howard just frowned and muttered, "Ah, your reservation." He didn't even try to smile, making Greg look more like the salesman. "Look, Angela. This is the shoe closet. With this much space, we can store not only shoes but also camping gear and car tires. And guess what? It connects to the kitchen. Come on, Angela, come see." Greg seemed unfazed by Howard's demeanor, excited about the new house smell. "Look, Angela. Over here. Check out this large kitchen. It's different from our apartment, right? I'll be in charge of cooking from now on. I'd be so happy if you, you could eat my cooking and find it delicious." Howard snorted from behind us. His attitude was more of a concern than Greg's slip-ups. When I cleared my throat, Howard actually clicked his tongue. Greg was enthusiastic, and I managed a polite smile. Yet all I could feel from Howard was a piercing gaze. Being a man in his mid-20s, perhaps his sense of propriety differed from ours. Do we, a couple in our 40s without children, look ridiculous getting excited about a home? Does he think we don't need a house because we have no kids? Or does he see us as too poor to be serious buyers? Various thoughts crossed my mind. Regardless of the reason, I resolved never to buy a house from Howard. "See, Angela? It's a nice house, isn't it?" "Yeah." I responded mechanically. Greg's eyes sparkled like a character from a girl's manga, making me feel sorry for the disparity in our excitement. "Come on, let's check out the bedroom next. The accent wall in blue is really cool." An accent wall? Was that mentioned in the info you showed me?" I don't remember. Honestly, whether it's a large kitchen or an accent wall, it doesn't matter much. Once we've seen everything, we can just say we'll think about it and leave. But then, Greg made an unexpected declaration. Let's buy this house. Huh? You like it too, right? I can't think of any other house. Let's sign the contract now. Wait. It's too soon to make a decision just because we came for a viewing. We need to look at other houses and think it over. Greg crossed his arms and shook his head. No, meeting this house was fate. If we miss out on it, I'll regret it for life. But, we haven't even seen the bathroom or the second floor yet. Let's calm down. Normally gentle, Greg frowned. We hadn't fought or argued before, so it was the first time I saw him upset. If we hesitate, someone else might snatch it up. Angela, how would you take responsibility if it gets sold while we're still considering? But, wow. Even though I said I like it, you totally deny it. Oh, I get it. You're looking down on me, right? Okay, I know I earn less. Greg pouted petulantly. I searched for words to soothe him. I'm sorry, I don't think that at all. I really respect your opinion. I like this house, too. But, before I could finish, Greg raised his voice. Then buy it. He sounded like a child throwing a tantrum in the candy aisle of a supermarket. But unlike candy, a house is not something you can just buy on a whim. You respect my opinion, right? Then let's buy it. I like this house. I won't accept any other. Since my salary isn't high, it's better if it's in your name. With my head in my hands, I was completely flustered. Just then, Howard, who had been grumpy until now, suddenly burst out laughing. He then finally put on a sales smile. Yes, it's a deal then. Thank you very much. At that moment, an older man who appeared to be Howard's boss came in. He ignored me and fawned over Greg. Sir, that's a wonderful decision. If you had waited until next time, it could have been sold. That happens quite often. You're a decisive and reliable husband. Wonderful. The man even gave a big round of applause. Greg was pleased by the obvious flattery and scratched his head shyly. By the way, sir. Have you seen the view from the entrance? Actually, on clear days, you can see Mount Fuji. And what luck, it's clear today. It's as if the mountain is welcoming you. Please, sir, do go to the entrance. A satisfied Greg headed toward the entrance with a dreamy look. As I reluctantly followed him, the man suddenly turned around. Oh, Mrs. Parker is fine. Please proceed with the contract with Howard. Right, you are fine. If we live here, we can see the mountain anytime. Let's buy it before someone else snatches it away. This was the first time I heard Greg speak with such malice. To come out when buying a house and ignore me, a woman, is just rude from his boss too. Then, not the living room, please go to the back room. No, I'm not buying it. Please, to the back room. Howard's tone became more forceful. His attitude shifted from disinterest to intimidation. I wondered if Greg and the real estate agent were in cahoots. Perhaps there's some kickback for Greg if I buy the house. That would explain why he was so pushy. How long have I been deceived? Could this be a marriage scam just to get me to buy a house? Filled with distrust towards Greg, I unconsciously followed Howard. As soon as we entered a separate room, Howard leaned in close. Escape through the back door now. His urgent words snapped me back to reality. Seriously, you should escape now. Escape? Not sign the contract? Howard was supposed to be on Greg's side. I glared at him suspiciously, but he looked me straight in the eye and whispered urgently. That man is dangerous. Howard then showed me something that made me tremble uncontrollably. Greg was no docile Shiba dog. I had understood nothing about him. Howard quietly brought my shoes from the entrance. My back still trembling, he pushed me strongly. Urged by Howard, I hurriedly ran out but couldn't decide where to go. My legs tangled, and I fell onto the asphalt road. My scraped knees hurt, and tears blurred my vision. Ah, this is not a dream. It's reality, and more tears welled up. I just wanted to marry a kind man. My sadness gradually turned into anger. I won't run away. I want to fight back. Intense palpitations spurred me on, and I vowed revenge on Greg. An hour later, I returned to our apartment. Greg came home. Angela, it's mean to go home first. Oh, sorry. I have a terrible headache. It wasn't a lie. Someone's actions had given me an unprecedented headache. Huh. But you could have said something, right? The real estate agent even looked for you. Don't you think that was a hassle? Greg has a habit of pouting when he's angry. Put your socks in the basket. Such light reminders often cause it. What once seemed boyish and cute now felt creepy and made my skin crawl. The man before me was not a boy, but a man in his 40s with every pore on his face open. Love had indeed been blind. Come on, it's still not too late to go back and sign the contract. The real estate agent is waiting for us. I said I have a headache. If you really want it, why don't you buy it yourself? I touched my throbbing head and answered quietly. Greg's pout made him look like a duck-faced girl. I can't buy it myself. You know my income isn't enough, that's harsh. Greg's statement proved he had intended for me to buy the house from the beginning. If I hadn't known Greg's true nature, I might have given in, thinking he was just being needy. Here, I made a bright suggestion. Then let's take out a mortgage together and make it a joint ownership. Together? Yes, together. Let's increase the monthly payments and pay off the mortgage quickly. No, that's, I peered into Greg's face as he mumbled. His duck lips moved slightly, and he seemed to chirp pitifully, glaring up at me. Are you trying to push the mortgage payments onto me alone? I didn't say that. I smiled mischievously. You're definitely on a low salary, so you alone couldn't dream of a home mortgage. But don't worry. If we do it together, there shouldn't be a problem. Greg looked up, his eyes wide. Don't worry about being on a low salary. The idea that a man has to be the breadwinner is outdated. In our house, it's the opposite. Greg's mouth hung open, and his face turned red. Shut up. Just listen, you keep mocking my low salary. Greg shouted in a high-pitched voice. Sweat was beading on every pore of his face. You're just my ATM. Wives should shut up and obey their husbands. Greg's true nature was finally exposed. Just a wife. Well, let me say this, if you don't want to be ridiculed, why don't you make an effort? Either do something about your low income or handle the household chores properly. You're just a mama's boy who's moved from his mother's house to my apartment, but I'm under no obligation to take care of you. I'm not your mama. Greg, who had been aggressive until now, suddenly appeared tearful. It felt as if he had never been scolded or argued with before. Mama. Greg muttered again with his lips pouted. It's ridiculous that during a marital argument, he seeks comfort from his mama. Greg trembled and seemed to wipe away his tears before he suddenly dashed towards the balcony. From behind the lace curtains, Greg wiped his tears with his arm. He thought he was hidden, but his pitiful figure was clearly visible. After sniffling, he took out his smartphone and held it to his ear. Mama. The person he called was, of course, his mama. After a short conversation while sobbing, Greg's smile returned. Seemingly emboldened, he returned to the room. Within 5 minutes, the intercom rang accompanied by loud knocking at the door. Greg, eyes sparkling, rushed to the entrance. And, of course, the person he let in was his mother. Angela, I heard you insulted Greg. I merely spoke the truth. Enough excuses. Now, apologize to Greg. With his staunch ally by his side, Greg waited arrogantly for my apology. Despite their pressure, I stood firm. It's Greg who should be apologizing. The mother-in-law was so shocked she couldn't speak. Greg started talking about buying a house even though he has no money. Where does he think the money for the house will come from? Me, right? It's unfair that he expects me to pay a huge amount and still behaves like this. Greg should apologize to me. The mother-in-law's veins throbbed with rage, as if they might burst at any moment. She had seemed straightforward when we first met for marriage, but it appears she can become a demon for her beloved son. Unforgivable. She clenched her fist and raised it. But I easily dodged it. Please stop. You'll hurt yourself. It'd be better if you only got hurt. Depending on your attitude, I might make you suffer even more. As the mother-in-law menacingly stepped closer, I felt an invisible force pushing me, and I kept backing away. Before I knew it, I was cornered in the small kitchen. Oh my, there's a knife here. Let's see how sharp it is. No, Mama. You can't possibly be thinking of using that on Angela, right? Please, stop. Greg immediately tried to calm his mother down. At least he was trying to protect me in a crisis. It's a shame I couldn't love him for that. Their intentions were all too clear. If it has to be done here, then a gas leak would be more realistic. Absolutely not the knife. It's so troublesome. It would be easier just to stab quickly. Yeah, but calm down, Mama. It has to look like an accident, right? The two of them grinned at me menacingly. What are you planning? What do you think? If you comply quietly, I can make it painless. But if you resist, it might hurt. Anyone would feel a sense of mortal danger after being given such hints. Greg may seem weak, but he is still a man. He is over 4 inches taller than me, and his large, thick hands slowly advanced towards me. His shadow darkened over me. Even knowing their intentions, the fear choked me, making my breath ragged. Help! I managed to cry out desperately. At that moment, the door flew open with a bang. Stay away from Angela. My mother burst into the room, holding up a smartphone and shouting like a police officer storming a hostage situation. I've recorded everything said so far. You were planning to harm Angela. There's no escape now, so give up. Greg, who had been acting tough, reverted back to his weak self, his eyes wide as he looked back and forth between my mother and me. Angela's mom. Why? Why are you here? You love your mama a lot, Greg. I know that. Huh? I mean, it's not like I'm particularly attached to my mom or anything. You don't have to hide it. It's fine to love your own mother. That's why I called mine too. After fleeing from the house viewing, the first person I turned to was my mother. Knowing she was next door gave me the courage to confront them. Now, it was my turn to stand tall and intimidate Greg. At that moment, Greg hid behind his mother, tail between his legs. What should we do, Mama? What should we do? Meanwhile, the mother-in-law, unflinching, advanced towards my mother. Oh my, Angela's mother. What exactly did we do? Did we use the knife? I haven't touched it, you know? Don't get carried away with your delusions. By the way, hiding and recording us is a crime, isn't it? Shall I call the police on you? The mother-in-law had a monstrous look as she tried to intimidate us. But my mother responded casually. Oh my, Greg's mother. What a coincidence. I was thinking of turning you in to the police too. Just as the doorbell rang, my mother pressed the intercom button nearby and exclaimed with a trembling voice. Please, help me. Suddenly, the door swung open, and 2 police officers entered the room. Seeing them, my mother turned pale and collapsed. Officer, help. Seeing her sudden change, the mother-in-law distorted her face in disbelief, making her look even more like a villain, prompting the police to restrain her from behind. Don't touch me. No. I haven't done anything. Calling the police is an overreaction. I really didn't do anything. All right, Grandma. Just calm down a bit. The officer's kind words did not reach the mother-in-law. The more she struggled, the tighter the police restrained her. What are you saying I did? She screamed. Since she seemed unaware of any crime, I pulled out a piece of evidence. My husband and his mother are trying to kill me. Then I played the audio. It was muffled and noisy, but it was unmistakably the voices of Greg and the mother-in-law. Greg, I like this house. I like it too. Then let's make that old bride buy it. She'll be happy to be of use to us. This was an audio file received from the real estate agent, Howard. It seemed Greg and his mother had already set their sights on the house during a prior viewing. Their jaws trembled as they faced each other. The recording continued. But I hate it. It's really my dream home, yet temporarily the bride lives there as if it's hers. Just a little patience, Mama. If something happens to the bride while she's paying off the mortgage, the debt is forgiven. I'm looking forward to that day. Oh, should we build a doghouse in the yard for her? Oh, Mama. Building a doghouse is too much trouble, and buying one is a waste. I wanted to believe the mastermind was the weak-minded Greg, but he too seemed quite pleased. Then we can just throw her out in the yard. There's a bit of snow, so if it's cold, she can make herself an igloo. Wow, poor Angela. If she's buried in the snow, she won't rot, and the house stays clean. After buying the house, she'll be disposable. Then we can send her off to the next world. This way, the house and a large sum from life insurance will be mine. Thank you for marrying such a good woman, Greg. You did well, Greg. Howard heard such a conversation during our later visit, hence his indifferent treatment. Though the talk might have seemed like a joke, seeing Greg hastily push for the contract convinced him it was serious. Greg's face went ashen as he collapsed weakly. It was hard to believe such a pitiful figure had devised such a terrifying plan. Angela, it's not what it seems. It's a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Then explain, how is it different? Greg said nothing more, his cheeks wet with tears. If you remain silent, how can I understand? By the way, when I checked Greg's computer, I found a dangerous search history. What's this about? My mother immediately opened Greg's laptop to show. The screen displayed a series of incriminating search terms. Looking up perfect crime while not even locking your computer, huh? The officer peered at the computer screen and his complexion changed. Can we talk a bit? Me? Oh no, what should I do? Mama. Greg cried bitterly, seeking help from his mother. But the mother-in-law turned her back, refusing to look at him. Huh? I don't know anything. Mama? Mama. Mama said to squeeze all the money from Angela and then dispose of her. Mama, Mama. Greg desperately clung to his mother. You fool. Don't say unnecessary things. Mama. The officer gently placed a hand on the mother-in-law. Grandma, let's hear your side of the story. Eventually, the mother-in-law lost her momentum. She opened and closed her mouth without making a sound and then just looked up at the sky. It seems Greg and his mother received a stern warning from the police. Since they hadn't actually carried out any harmful actions against me, they weren't charged. It's your fault I lost my job. Although I had promptly divorced Greg and was feeling relieved, the former mother-in-law showed up at my place, ranting. If you hadn't meddled, I wouldn't have been fired. Take responsibility. She was banging on the front door as if to break it down. In fact, she used to work for a life insurance company. Not satisfied with the policies I already had, she had taken out additional policies in my name. Should anything happen to me, Greg would of course receive a large sum of insurance money. You committed a crime by signing up for insurance in someone else's name. You got fired, rightly so. With that said through the door, fearing for my life, I called the police. After that, the mother-in-law made several more assaults, but each time I refused to open the door and called the police right away. The mother-in-law became notorious in the neighborhood. She was rumored to be a habitual insurance fraudster, and there were even whispers that her long-deceased husband might have been another of her victims. Relieved by the absence of the mother-in-law, I was soon confronted by Greg's arrival. He rang the intercom once and quietly pleaded. "Let's start over, just the two of us. Mom won't come out of the house. It's safe now, we won't be disturbed." Apparently, the mother-in-law, crippled by fear of public scrutiny, had become a recluse. "It's really bad, you know. She took my bank book and credit cards. She's been shopping online with them. When I told her I was running out of money, she locked me out and told me to work more. I'm going to go bankrupt at this rate. What should I do?" When I remembered how kind you used to be, I found myself coming here. I addressed him through the door, even as he tried a tearful plea. "So, you mean to say you don't want to take care of your reclusive mom and just want to take it easy at my place?" "No, that's not what I meant. Why don't you take care of your beloved mama forever?" Without his mother's support, a powerless Greg sulkily returned to his family home. Despite being a recluse, his fierce mother was far from quiet. One could only imagine how exhausted Greg must have felt inside that suffocating home. His gaunt cheeks spoke volumes of his hardships. Yet, without someone else's encouragement, he couldn't muster the courage to escape. He deserved to endure this living hell with his beloved mama. Since it was dangerous to continue living alone in an apartment known to Greg, I moved back to my family home. Living with others is incredibly reassuring, enveloping me in a sense of security as if I'm wrapped in a cocoon. I'll start looking for a new place soon. Maybe I'll find an apartment with good security this time. Do you intend to leave? Why not stay here forever?" Her petite mother flexed her muscles, showing little bulge, her upper arms sagging instead. "Mom's security will protect you from any threat." I laughed at my mother's joke, and she started laughing too. When I was frightened, knowing Greg's intentions, the first face that came to mind was my mother's. When I called her for help, she came to my aid immediately. There is no greater ally for me than my mother. Mom's security looks a bit weak, kind of unreliable. I playfully slapped my mother's saggy belly. Without needing Mom's security, I wished in my heart to keep laughing together forever.